Hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming and taking time out of your day to come here. Whether if you're curious about what classes to choose or for your child, here's a resource for you guys just to give you guys an insight on how to effectively choose your courses. So again, thank you so much everyone and welcome. So let me introduce myself first. I am Kate. I am in grade 10. I'm sophomore in Westview High School. And I know my experience in choosing classes, I had zero idea of what my passion was. So today is kind of like a resource for you guys to kind of choose your high school classes path. And we also have two lovely guests here. So Katherine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Katherine. I'm a senior at the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business. I study finance and operations and minor in consumer psychology. I graduated Westview High School in 2020. Took a lot of business classes, took a lot of art classes, didn't exactly do the typical STEM route that many people do. But happy to talk about course selection or just navigating high school and college in general. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Thank you, Katherine. And I'll also like to thank Miss Dandan from Haddee. So yeah, so Katherine, can you tell us one word to describe your high school life? Just tell us what it was like and how it was for you.
Okay, I would say high school was pretty busy. I think busy would be the word I use to describe it. I did a lot of stuff in high school, and I think some of it was useful and some of it wasn't in terms of getting into college and getting into the college that I wanted to get into.
Mm-hmm.
I think in high school, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be a doctor going in. My parents really wanted me to be a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think like freshman year, took AP Chem, did AP Bio, did all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I joined like a healthcare club on campus. I don't know if it's still existing, but YLHC, Young Leaders in Healthcare, and ended up being president of that later on throughout my high school career.
Mm-hmm.
But I started out in STEM and I thought I wanted to do STEM and then decided I wanted to transition to business and then started taking a lot of business classes. Also was interested in art, so did art as well. But then did like DECA for business. And so DECA is the internet, it's like the business competition club, and then competed in that, competed internationally for that as well. And ultimately decided to go with business and then applied to business schools, ended up getting into UPenn, which was my first choice. So ED to UPenn. And then that's where I am right now.
Oh, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Also, do you know about what grade, what made you realize that you were going to business? That was your ultimate goal.
Yeah, so I think freshman year, it's a good time to just try a bunch of things. I think when you come into freshman year in high school, like at least I went to Deer Canyon for elementary school, went to Mesa Verde for middle school. And then at least in Deer Canyon and Mesa Verde, like the strong emphasis is on STEM. I think San Diego is very STEM focused and like usually your parents are in STEM. All of your friends want to go into STEM. And I think there is that social pressure to like everyone's going to STEM, so I'll go into STEM as well. And I think I was going through that freshman year. And then like STEM was interesting. And I think I could have done well in STEM. I would have been
Mhm.
fine going into biology or chemistry, but it was something I was super passionate about. But business was something that I wanted to learn more about. And then I took my first business class, I think freshman year. It was, I don't know if they still offer it, but it was business entrepreneurship at Westview. And basically, for an entire semester, your class ends up making a startup. And so we created like a jewelry startup, and then you learn how to like develop the product, you learn how to market, you learn how to sell your product, you learn how to you just learn a bunch of things. I really enjoyed business doing that. And so I thought that like going through that process and taking that class exposed me to a lot of different business aspects, like finance and marketing and sales and operations. And I really enjoyed all those things. And so that class kind of transitioned my thought process away from STEM and more towards business. And then so after that class, I think I ended up taking all the business classes that Westview had to offer.
Mhm.
And then that kind of like changed the way I ended up doing high school.
Right. So what would you say are the opportunities that opened up for you after you found your passion? were your goals like more set and more like defined or?
Yeah, I think one thing to note is I think college applications are getting if we're thinking about college, right? I think like college is one thing to think about, but also like your life and like where you want to go in your career is something else. But in terms of college, like when you're in high school trying to differentiate yourself and applying to good colleges and like getting noticed by good colleges and being able to, get to the college you want to, there's a lot of competition, especially now. And I think it was very advantageous for me to move into business because I think in San Diego, not a lot of people end up going
Mhm.
into the business field. And so the fact that like I did business and decided to specialize in it, it made my goals a lot easier to achieve, right? So like I knew I wanted to do business. And so I kind of dropped all those things and things like I knew that like my GPA wasn't going to be as high as my friends because they were all taking those AP STEM classes and there's no AP business classes. So that's something that you might want to consider. But it's also like being like once I figured out that I wanted to do business, I was able to focus in and really just choose the things that would help me develop those business skills and make me stand out as a business student when applying to business schools. And so I like stopped taking, I didn't stop, but I focused more on business classes. And then my extracurriculars were more focused on like DECA and like building that up. And then I think that helped me stand out more, helped me develop more of like the spike I think people talk about, where like when you're applying to college, you want to have that one spike that differentiates you from everyone else. And being able to figure out that I wanted to do business earlier on in college, in high school, it helped me develop that spike and differentiate myself moving into college.
Right, I agree. And you did mention that you competed in DECA internationally, and I know that's like a very spectacular thing to achieve,
Mhm.
and you must have like put in a lot of work to it. So when you said like your high school life was very busy, you have to like balance all of your curriculars and your courses. What are some tips or like what advice would you give to like balance all those? Mhm.
Yeah. One thing to note though is I looking back at high school, one thing that I do regret is I wish I had more fun in high school. I think I worked really hard. I'm very glad that I did because it got me to where I am right now. But to all you like everyone who's going into high school or who's in high school right now, I'd recommend like just like enjoy your life for a bit. I think it's important to do that. Like once you get into college, once you start doing internships in the real world, like you'll understand that like outside like when you have a job, it's a lot harder to like have fun and like enjoy life. But anyways, so in terms of like managing things that I did, I was very set on Google Calendar. If you guys don't use Google Calendar, would highly recommend, but I would literally have like my class day. So from like 9 to 3 o'clock was for classes going to school. And I would come home at 3:30, or sometimes I would work in the library. And then it'd be like 3:30 to 4:30 is working on like AP chemistry. And then 4:30 to 5:30 is doing homework for AP biology. And then 5:30 to 7:30 is like studying for DECA. And then 7:30 to 8 is like eating dinner. And then 8 to 9:30 was like studying DECA again, doing a practice exam. So I was very like diligent and disciplined about the time I managed my time, about how I manage my time. And so like everything was written out. I had like a journal, I had like a schedule. And so every day, like everything was scheduled out. I had a to-do list and everything was like planned out hour by hour because there just was so much to do. And I think in high school, like you're doing so much, right? Like you have all these extracurriculars, you have clubs to do. I think I was like head of a few different clubs. And so there's a bunch of responsibilities and it's super easy to lose track of what you need to do. So would highly recommend getting a little planner and then writing everything you need to do out and then setting time to that. And so saying from 5 to 7, I'm doing this, from 7 to 8, I'm doing this. Just being very disciplined about that. But again, also taking breaks and making sure that you're taking some time for yourself as well.
Mhm. Right, right. And I know that time management is the key, especially in high school where everything gets busy. But for all the incoming freshmen here, would you recommend to like take a lot of like rigorous courses in the beginning or just like take easy courses first?
Um, that's a good question. I would say it's like a mix, right? I think you yourself will know what you can handle, what you can't handle. I think you should have stretch goals. So I think like I think I forget how many APs I took first year. I think it might have been one or two. I think I took AP Chem and AP Calc first year. And I think that was a stretch. It was hard, definitely, to go from obviously like eighth grade to have zero APs to go to two APs all at once. And it was hard. Like I remember studying a lot, and especially during like May when you're like taking your AP exams, it's pretty stressful, especially the first year. So I don't think there's a specific strategy in terms of, oh, you should take easy class first or you should take hard classes later. I think that you should have a 4-year plan, but understand that plan is going to change a lot, right? Like I think the 4-year plan I had coming into high school was very different from what I ended off with, like when what I graduated with. So have a 4-year plan, like kind of map out, oh, I want to do like X amount of APs in the next 4 years. And I might do 2 this year, and then 3 next year, and then 4 this year, and then like 3 the next year. So like have a plan, but understand that's going to change. And I think it's okay. I like forget if you can like drop classes in high school. I forget. I know in college, like you can like drop classes in the beginning, few weeks. But if it like doesn't work out, I would recommend dropping classes. But also one thing I would highly recommend is if you have like siblings or like friends who are older than you, who are like 2-3 years older than you, would recommend like talking to them, chatting with them, and just understanding their workload, understanding who's a good professor to have and who's not. I think that changes a lot of things too. And so having like talking to people and understanding what the expectations are for this class and how much workload it's going to be can help you schedule your calendar a bit more, help you schedule your class load a bit more. So yeah, I would recommend that, but I don't think there's a specific strategy to like taking easy class versus or hard classes later.
Right. So it's kind of like matching your own pace to see what works for you, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you did mention that you found your passion like later on in high school. Like at first you're very STEM orientated. And I know a lot of like middle schoolers, especially, they don't really have like a set passion yet. So do you have any like advice to like to find your passion or like to kind of discover what you're deeply like into? And yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend, I think freshman year, you should try a lot of different things. I think freshman year is the time to just explore a lot of things, join a bunch of clubs, go into the club fair and like, just like see what interests you and just do that and just go join those clubs. I think it's very low commitment to just go to a club meeting and figure out if that's something that you like. But one thing that I think is underrated that I think high school students should do more is talk to people who are in college or talk to people who are graduating and understand, like try to understand like what they're doing with their lives. I think what I realize now in college is that like when I was in high school, I didn't realize all these business jobs existed, right? Like I'm going into private equity out of college, like finance, and there's like investment banking, there's management consulting, there's all these different careers in business that I had no idea existed. And all of these careers, like you'll get 6 figures, like it's a great life. It's you learn so much and you can do so much, and there's so many of these opportunities out there in business that I didn't know about in high school. And I think if I talk to more college students who know a bunch more and talk to the older students who have graduated, who have full-time jobs and understand what is out there on the market, I think that would have shaped what I did in high school a bit more. I think especially going from like middle school to high school, the jobs that you think exist out there are like the jobs that your parents do, the jobs that your siblings do. And that's very limited, especially if it's all in STEM. Like I know like CS, I know bioengineering, I know like doctor and lawyer, like those are the jobs that I know. But if you can talk to different people and understand what different careers are out there and what people do in those jobs, how their day-to-day life is like, I think that opens up many doors and can propel you into a different passion or career that you might not have known about earlier.
Right, I agree. So getting connections, that really helps with just like finding your connection and just like getting out there, trying new things. And yeah.
Yeah, just one thing to know is that like now in business school, like when you're applying for jobs here in business school, one thing that we do all the time is coffee chats. So we will literally just like go on LinkedIn and just go email people and say, hey, I'm a student at UPenn and I want to learn more about your job. Do you have 30 minutes to talk? And I think that's something that high school students, I think it's be very useful for you guys to do that as well. Like if you have, like if your parents have friends who have gone into engineering or have gone into all these different careers, just ask if you can have a 30-minute call with them and ask them about different career options, ask them about different opportunities and what they would have done differently in high school. And I think that gives you a lot of advice and a lot of different paths to pursue. And so that's something that's pretty useful as well.
Right, that's interesting. All right. And I know like there's a lot of people who are also like set into one direction. So for those who are like really into business and who are like already set, like they're going into a business school, do you have any like tips for them, like in high school, like extracurriculars or choosing courses, what courses to take if you want to go down the business path?
That's a good question. I think I don't know who's teaching the business classes now, but when I was in college, when I was in high school, Miss Rankin, I think she retired, but she was the one teaching the business classes classes, and I took all the classes that she was teaching, and they were all great. So I think I don't know if they still offer it, but business entrepreneurship, that one's a great class. I think that's a great class to start out with. You get to like understand all aspects of running a business and different functions in business. So that was really cool. I think personal finance or finance, if you can take a finance class, that's great as well. I think that not only sets you up for business later on, but it's also, it teaches you how to do your taxes, what like a 401k is, what a easy 1040 is, all those things. So that's like just like a helpful class to take in life. Marketing class was also really helpful. I thought marketing was really interesting. I thought going into college, I was going to do marketing. I ended up switching to finance. But marketing's cool as well. And then in terms of extracurriculars, I think DECA is a great place to start. Again, especially because we're in Southern California. Southern California has a very like, especially San Diego. San Diego has a very small business presence. And so if you do really well in DECA, or if you do really well in any FBLA or any of these business competitions, you stand out a lot because barely anyone else around you is doing DECA, is doing FBLA. And so if you can do well in that, that really stands out in college applications. But like also again, being in college and having a bunch of friends who did business things in high school, a lot of them also like started their own nonprofits. A lot of them started their own businesses, or they like interned at different companies. So those are all different things you can do as well. Like summer internships, working at a company, working at a business, or learning business operations and stuff like that. Or again, like starting your own business, I don't know, you could do like social media, you could do anything really. But I think that shows initiative and that differentiates you and like makes you stand out in comparison to others. So if you can start something, if you can do something that is unique and separate, I think that's great.
Right. So basically the key to standing out in like college applications is to like do something different that nobody else does. So that's like
Yeah,
kind of
I think it's hard. I think like the college landscape has changed so much. I don't even know if I applied right now, I would get into Penn, because it's been so competitive, and it's like it's so much harder, I think, to get into college now. But I do think if you can like choose one thing and do that very well, that's going to help you a lot more. Like I remember when I was applying to college, I had like all these different extracurriculars, right? I was like president of Young Leaders in Healthcare. I was president of a club that I started. I was president of DECA. I was in like a volunteer organization. I was in XYZ. There's so many different things. And in the common application, there's only like so many places you can put things that you've done. And there are things that I've done that I had leadership positions in that I couldn't even put on the common application because there's no room for it. And so like I would recommend like don't do everything, but like choose a few, 2 or 3 things that you think are very impactful and that align with what you want to do, and just like very hone in on that. Like make sure you put it in your all into those specific things and don't try to cast a broad net. I think it's important to like try a bunch of things like freshman year, but then like junior year, senior year, definitely focus down and focus on what you really want to do, and then end up writing about those in your college applications.
Right. Those are some really good tips. Also, I know like a lot of people who they either like found their passion like before high school or like during their course of high school, and sometimes they get like unsure of like their passion.
Mhm.
Have you ever been like really unsure about like going into business or like the risks that you have to take and just like doubting yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was like back to freshman year when I was deciding what, like I think it was like freshman to sophomore year, deciding if I wanted to take more business and more art classes or take more APs. Because it was like, oh, there's only so many class spots that I can take. So it's either I take more AP classes, and if I take more AP classes, I'm going to have a higher GPA and I'll be higher ranked in class, or I take business classes, which I'm not going to have a higher GPA because they're not ranked on a 5-point scale. They're ranked on a 4-point scale. My GPA will be lower, but it'll be more aligned with what I want to do. And I think that I had some hesitancies there where I was like, no one else I knew was really going into business and everyone was going into STEM. So all of my friends I knew they were going to have higher GPAs than me. I knew they were going to, at least on like a GPA standpoint, they would perform better than me, probably have a higher chance of like getting into colleges. And so I think that part I was a little bit more hesitant on. But like looking back, I do think it's very important to understand like GPAs and everything, right? Like there's so many other things that are important than GPA. And I think like taking classes and doing what you think matters and what you think is important and what you're passionate about is something that's important too. And so pursuing that and going after that, even if everyone else is doing something else, is impactful as well. Yeah.
Right. So really pursue what you want to do and like don't compare yourself to other people.
But
Right.
it's also like you don't like I knew I wanted to do business, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in business, right? Like
Right.
you don't need to know like, oh, I'm very passionate about this one specific thing. Like I knew I was passionate about business. Like I was interested in business. I don't know if I would say I was passionate about it. But I was interested in business and I wanted to do business, but I didn't know what I wanted to do in business. And that's fine as well. I think just have a sense of general direction and then pursue that and then like do as best you can within that direction. And you don't have to know everything high school. Like I didn't know anything in high school. Like I didn't know anything going into college. Like you'll figure it out as you progress through time.
Right, right. So can you give us like an insight on like what is it like being a business school student, especially like in UPenn? I know Wharton is really prestigious. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's very different from high school. You have a lot more time on your calendar and you can do a bunch of different things. I would say business school is very different from normal school. Like my brother went to UC Berkeley. So I like comparing his experience with my college experience, it's very different. Like especially because UPenn Wharton is also a private school and it's
Mm,
relatively like Wharton's kind of small. The first of all, like the resources you get at Penn are very different and the opportunities that you get are just crazy. Like the number of opportunities that you get at a business school is unparalleled to if you were to go to UC Berkeley, go to Haas. Like it's very different.
mm-hmm,
But in terms of college, you do get a lot of flexibility. Like at Penn, at Wharton, you can choose so many different like concentrations. So I chose finance and operations, but you could do marketing, you could do real estate, you could do advertising, you could do ESG, you could do data analytics. Like there's so many different choices that you have. And that can be overwhelming, but I think it's super interesting as well. And then like college is very similar in terms of high school where there's lots of clubs. Those clubs can be very pre-professional. So Warren has a very pre-professional culture. And so people are like in consulting clubs, in finance clubs, doing case competitions. It's very like professional focused.
mm-hmm,
But I think the biggest change between high school and college is like kind of your internships. And so in high school, like usually your summers are like you're doing SAT prep or you're like you're tutoring kids or you're going to a summer camp. Like your summers don't really matter in high school, but in college your summers matter a lot where it's like your freshman year. So like usually basically since freshman year of college I've had a job, one or two jobs every single summer. So my freshman year summer I was working at a startup. I was also working at a consulting firm. My sophomore year summer, I was working at a private equity firm, the same private equity firm I'm working at right now. Junior year summer, the one I just finished, was working at the private equity firm. And then after senior year, I'm moving back to my private equity firm. So it's a lot of like, it's a very pre-professional nature. There's a lot of pressure to like get a job very early. You start recruiting for jobs very early. Basically, you'll get your full-time job like sophomore year of college. So it's like a very
mm,
pre-professional focus, and there's a lot of pressure to do well and to recruit very hard during those first few years. But then when you get to like senior year, I have like no classes, I have no clubs, like it's very free. I have so much time on my hand. So it's like you put in the effort in the beginning and then you get to reap the rewards later. So I don't know,
mm.
college is really fun. College is great. I love college. So much more fun than high school, but yeah, it's like a great time. And then you learn so much. I think the amount that you learn is crazy. Also, like the people that you meet, the opportunities that you have are just unparalleled. Like it's crazy how many opportunities you have, how many people you'll meet. But yeah, college is great. Business school is great. Highly recommend.
Right. So it sounds like you're more free in like choosing courses and like what you do rather than like high school. Like you have to like pick this course and like that course.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
especially because I think in high school there's like what, four business classes, and
Yeah.
then at Wharton there's like I don't know, hundreds of business classes where it's like anything you want to learn, you have the opportunity to learn, and then you also have the best professors in the world teaching you like finance, teaching you accounting, and so it's like it's really cool to have these experiences. And one thing to note also is like in business school a lot of things are group work, very team oriented. And so like every single class that I'm in right now, we have teams and your homework, your projects are all in teams. Whereas in high school, I think that's very rare, especially in STEM classes as well. Everything's like exams or like individual stuff where everything you're doing it alone. Whereas in business school, everything's together. Like everything you have to work in a team, you have to find your own team, you have to do everything in your own team. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
harder to like get to know people and to figure out how you work best in a team, but it's also really fun to be able to work in a team and do all these things together.
Right. So, Catherine, you mentioned how connections were really important, especially for people going to business. So, I know like in high school, there's also like a lot of internships you can like to them. So, what are your like advice and tips on like outreach and like getting connections to like work at a certain place or yeah.
Yes, this is a great question. If you're in high school and you do not have a LinkedIn, I would highly recommend you make a LinkedIn. Make a LinkedIn and then just like start connecting with people who go to Westview or who you know. And I think that ends up building your network, and then start cold emailing. This is something that was very new to me. I never did this in the high school. But cold emailing is like when you literally find someone's email and then you say like Westview high school student reaching out as your title. And then you say, hi, my name is Katherine. I'm a senior at Westview studying XYZ. I'm interested in blah, 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 blah. Do you have time? Da, 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 da. And so you send out cold emails. So like first filling up your LinkedIn and having like the LinkedIn presence. And so you list out like what you do in high school, what organizations you're part of, what any past experiences you have. And then doing those cold emails. That's a great way to like reach out and to find internships and whatnot. But I think also having warm connections. So warm connections are anything where like your parents are friends of friends of these people, or your friends' parents work at this place and you want a job at this place. Anything where you have an existing relationship, if you can leverage that and use that to build connections and to get that job, that's also really important as well. But yeah, you learn in business school that everything's like connections, everything's who you know and how you know them. So if you can start developing those connections, developing that LinkedIn presence, and building those relationships throughout high school, you'll be far, far, far ahead of people who haven't started that in high school.
Right, I agree. And so you've been in business school for a long time, I know that. And
Mhm.
what would you say are like the best perks or like the pros or like the cons of business school compared to just like any other majors? Like, what do you say are your favorite things?
Okay. Well, first, business school is a lot more fun. I have friends who are in pre-med. I have friends who are like pre-law, and their classes are very boring and not fun, and they have a lot of homework. Whereas business class, like people are like, oh, business students don't do anything. Like, yeah, we don't do anything, but we like our classes are relatively easier. But like you learn a lot more. And I think business classes, like you're gonna have a lot of fun in business school. Business school, again, like you meet crazy people, people who come from all different backgrounds. And I think business draws in a lot of cool, unique people. And so the people are great at business. In terms of the class load, the workload is going to be easier, but it's not as hard. Like you don't have to take organic chem. You don't have to take any of those crazy STEM classes. I think the hardest math that I've ever done is like I've done a derivative in a statistics class, and everything else is like addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. That's it. Like business itself is not hard. Like the classes won't be hard. I think the recruiting and like getting a job is going to be harder than your peers, and that cycle is a little bit more tough. But like classes themselves are going to be easier. But it's also if you go to like a great business school, like the professors are going to be amazing. They've done like crazy things. They've published books. They've like been CEOs of like Fortune 500 companies. So business school is really cool for that. And then also if you go to business school, you're going to have crazy speakers. So people who are literally CEO of BlackRock, CEO of Goldman Sachs, CEO of like McKinsey, they'll come to your school and give you talks. And that's really cool as well. But I think business is like many people don't go into business because I think they don't know what there is to do in business, but there's a ton of opportunities in business. And if you haven't considered it, I would recommend considering it because again, there's just so many jobs and there's so many opportunities that you can do in business. And it's just super cool. I think the people that you meet are amazing. The opportunities that you have are great. And yeah, in business school is a lot more fun than like law school or like pre-med. So yeah.
I see. Okay, so
So yeah, the 30 minutes is up, Catherine. I know you're busy, so I don't want to take too much of your time. And so yeah, actually, Catherine built the first version for Haddee. Actually, Catherine and the team, the 4 students back in the summer of 2020, wrote the entire product requirement document for Haddee. Okay, so that's our software is based on the requirements coming from these 4 interns, and 3 of them at once already working Wall Street. Okay, Catherine gonna come into Bay Area. We'll see each other very soon. and Evan is in NYU, and the young student Emily designed the Haddee logo, and she's applying this year. So anyway, Katherine, I want to thank you again for all your help, and you are an amazing student and amazing young adult. And I just, send you an email. I said that you're the most responsive and the responsible young adult I've ever met. And your success is due to your characters and qualities. Thank you so much, Katherine, and for your authentic sharing.
Perfect.
And yeah, we'll let you go. And I know your time is very tight. And so next person, Kate, I will stop share, and Leanne from CCA, and we'll introduce. Okay, Kate, floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And before this, I really want to thank Haddee for setting this meeting up and just like connecting with the college students to make this possible. And basically, Haddee, if you didn't know, is an international education platform. So they have wonderful counselors, wonderful teachers. So if you're ever looking for tutoring or any like college counseling services, I highly recommend Haddee as a student myself. Okay, so we have another lovely guest with us today, Liam. So can you please introduce yourself?
Hi. Yeah, I went to CCA from 2017 to 2021. I'm now a junior at UC Berkeley studying computer science and math. Yeah.
Nice. So, okay, so can you give us like one word to describe your high school life? Like, what was it like for you?
Work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, can you like elaborate on that? Like, was it like really-
So a lot of students at Kenyon Crest take a lot of AP classes, and at that school, the AP classes generally have a lot of homework and a lot of studying to do. So most of my time was like spent studying for AP classes, I would say.
Right. So I heard like CCA is like a boiling pot of like pressure. It's really competitive. So how did you like manage work and like extracurriculars at the same time? Like, what are some tips you would give?
So actually, I did not have many extracurriculars in high school. Like basically, I would say 90% of my time was focused on doing schoolwork, and the rest of the time I spent was just not doing productive things, I would say. Though I find that a lot of other students probably do have trouble like balancing their time, like especially students that do have a large load of extracurricular studies. There's no tricks, I would say, to managing their time. A lot of students I know just like slept less in order to achieve their goals. I wouldn't particularly like recommend that because your brain is still developing at like 15, 16. Sleeping less is bad. So to be honest, if I were to cut one thing, I would just take one less AP class, for instance. And like that sleep will probably be well worth it.
Okay. So I know that you're majoring in computer science right now in Berkeley University. And so how did you find your passion? Was it like set before high school, or you kind of have to like figure it out for yourself?
So in high school, I switched like quote unquote paths many times, or I switched interests many times. Like, let's see, at some point I wanted to be like a botanist or like, well, basically agriculture. And then later on, I wanted to get into like politics and public policy. After that, I wanted to study math. And then coming into college, I was intending to study math, but computer science and math overlap a bit, and a lot of the same students are taking both courses. So that's how I sort of found it.
So I get that you're more into like the STEM majors, right? Like the STEM
Yeah.
class. Right, the STEM side. So what are like some tips in like choosing courses for like the STEM majors?
Okay, as a STEM major, I would definitely suggest taking AP Calculus AB and AP Calculus BC. Most schools in San Diego should offer that, so I generally recommend those because just you'll be a leg up in college having taken those. In particular, if you have the option, I would recommend taking like community college classes. So what I'd recommend is linear algebra, differential equations, and multivariate calculus. Those I'd recommend taking all three before college. Community college generally has pretty like lax grading, so I wouldn't worry too much about like getting grade, but just more so on focusing on getting more exposure to mathematical stuff. If you do have it in you, a lot of students, like advanced students in particular, started like as a young child doing math competitions. So if you have that interest, I would recommend doing it, just in particular because a lot of those students end up very successful in STEM like career paths in college and beyond.
Right. So you're saying like more focus on like the academic side, like math and like science and like do really competitive stuff.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, also not necessarily needing to do competitive things, just like studying on your own is fine. Like a lot of students do well on that. But there aren't exactly other things that won't help you succeed in STEM besides just spending a lot of time studying math and science. I'd say biology in particular is probably different because most of it is knowledge and not problem solving, and a lot of it's experimental work rather than logical work. So I'd say biology and chemistry are like on the other end of STEM. They're different than the formal sciences, which are usually math, computer science, and statistics, where those are like experimental sciences, chemistry, biology, and even some parts of physics. As a STEM major, though, in particular, I would recommend you to read a lot of like books before going to college. Just because here's the thing, a lot of STEM majors are for some reason deficient in reading and writing skills. However, in college, most of your time at the point in college should be spent on like developing STEM skills rather than catching up on other skills. So I would say before you go to college, develop those skills. So by the time you're in college, you can spend more time developing STEM skills instead of having to catch up.
Right, I see. So gain like prior knowledge before you get into college.
The thing is, the opportunity cost of studying other things in college is a lot higher than it is in high school. Like in high school, there's like, what else are you gonna do? But in college, there's like things like clubs, internships, more difficult classes, research that you could be doing instead of catching up.
Right. Okay, so as a computer science major in UC Berkeley, can you give us like an insight on what your student life is like and what are the like perks of the major that you would say?
Okay, so student life very heavily depends on the particular student, their academic strength, and their interests. So depending on the student, you could have a very academically inclined student who spends a lot of time studying, or you could have a student who takes like, less classes and enjoys their life more. Maybe they're like doing clubs, maybe they're like, I don't know, pursuing their hobbies, etc. So I would say maybe if you are new to like computer science in college, the first couple semesters might be difficult, but after that, it really depends on the student how much you want to put in. Because some students shooting for a PhD program, like competitive PhD programs, will probably spend all their time doing like STEM extracurriculars / classes. While another student who maybe has different goals, maybe won't take as many classes or spend as much time on research. Perks of studying computer science in college. So a lot of companies will come and like try to advertise themselves as a good place to work. They'll also bring a lot of like food and merchandise. So in like the computer science department areas, you'll find that a lot of companies are handing out a lot of food, t-shirts, cups, etc. Some of the nicer companies will take you out for dinner. You don't have to do anything. You just sign up. They'll just take you out to dinner with their whole team. So I would say those things are perks. In addition, studying computer science in college, as most people probably know, I think it's one of the highest paying salaries, like on average, straight out of a bachelor's. So that is something to look forward to.
Right. So you did mention that finding your passion just makes you actively want to pursue it all the time. So And if you're like a student going into STEM or planning to go into STEM in high school, what are some like extracurriculars that you recommend to them?
That is a bit tough. Okay, so for students who already know what they want to do, it's a very easy choice that they can just start doing very intensive things, like doing those very competitive things. But if you have no exposure already and have no prior interest, then doing those might just turn you off because they are competitive and can sometimes have like a not so pleasant an unpleasant environment associated with them. So for students who may not know what they want to do yet but want to explore STEM, I would say for me, online courses probably are a good thing just to check out things on like Coursera or YouTube, that kind of thing. But I guess there's probably some STEM clubs in your campus, but a lot of the STEM clubs are associated with like, preparing for competitions, etc.
Mm.
I would think that there must exist some kind of like after school extracurricular for things. Like for computer science, there definitely is. I'm not too sure for biology and chemistry,
Mm.
but those things do exist and probably would be good for young students.
Right. So what was it in high school that like that made you stand out the most in like college application? What would you say?
Okay, so again, just some general overview. I didn't do too much in high school. Like
Mhm.
I had like very I had a very large diversity of experiences, but none of which were anything, I don't know, prestigious or impressive. It was just things that I like to do. Like I was volunteering for some political campaigns. I was attempting to lead some agriculture club,
I see.
those kind of things. But but I did do very well in school in high school and took a lot of AP classes. And I think UCs at that time really liked that. I think at this point though, the thing is if you're, a pretty interested student, maybe at a competitive school, everyone around you will be taking like whatever number of AP classes. The thing is AP classes are a time sink. A lot of them, like the risk to reward ratio is not very this risk to reward ratio is not very pleasant, I would say. Because say you have 4 AP classes, each of them takes an hour and a half of studying a day. That's 6 hours a day.
Mhm.
And will colleges really notice a difference between 3 and 4? Maybe not. So maybe take less AP classes that you're not interested in and spend that time pursuing some kind of extracurricular. Because in the end, everyone has about maybe 10 to 15 AP classes if you're going to a competitive high school, going into college. And I don't think taking those extra 2 AP classes would have made the difference, but having, like a strong award or some strong extracurricular would have made the difference.
Mm, okay. So we reached the 15-minute mark. So does anyone have any questions for Liam? Okay. Okay, so what classes did you take in high
In high
school?
school,
Oh.
I think it's a while ago, but
Mhm.
okay, I think freshman year everyone takes similar classes. I took Spanish as my language.
Mhm.
So besides that, I think I took okay, we'll go with the AP classes first, and probably that's the thing
Yeah.
everybody's antsy about. I took AP Calculus AB, AP Calculus BC, AP Chemistry, AP World History, AP Psychology, AP Physics 1, AP Biology, AP Language, AP English Language, AP US History. I guess I took multivariate calculus and linear algebra. I took AP Government, AP Econ, and AP Literature.
Mm,
Let's see, someone's a class question. How much of each class in community college? So I took like 1 semester of community college prior to college applications. What kind of strong extracurriculars awards would be good? So the students that really stand out in particular are the students that in STEM are students that won math competition awards. So in particular, qualifying for Amy the American Invitational Mathematics Exam, and USMO, that's the one after Amy. Also, so all the Olympiads for chemistry, biology, math, physics, and computer science, those kind of things are very strong. MIT really likes those, and most schools are also like those. Other than examinations, I think colleges like, what is it, Intel Research Science Award, I'm not sure what it's called, but there's some research like fair that a lot of students do. So those are the type of awards I would know, so like research awards or like examinations. Let's see, from political science to math, that's a big change. What made you change direction? So I think my junior summer I was supposed to intern with some like, I don't know, some like council member or some like congressman or something. But isolation happened around that time, so I wasn't able to do that. I don't know, I was bored. There was no school, so my dad was taking some online course. I decided to do it with him. It was in some like math, computer science kind of thing. So after that, I just started keep taking them. Did I do those competitions? No, I did not. But a lot of the students I know that take similar classes to me at Berkeley did do those and have an easier time because of prior experience and problem solving skills. How much do I think participating in volunteering impacted my college application? I would not say that my volunteering in particular stood out. As in, again, everybody has volunteering. So, and for some, like, everyone will have some number of hours of volunteering. And colleges know that everyone else is doing it because, well, the colleges know that students are likely to do it because everyone else is doing it. Like, I would say you should probably do it just to make sure it's not a weak point, but I wouldn't say that it really will make your college application stand out. For computer science major, what computer languages should a middle school start? I would say Python is the easiest language that people usually use. It's the most versatile as well for numerical computing. You can also write websites in Python, like as the backend. So I would recommend Python. It's just the easiest to use, has the easiest syntax, and has the most applications. Okay, back to the competition thing. So for a lot of like getting a job in computer science, having done computer science and mathematics competitions plays a big role because they're going to have some examinations to get the jobs. So like interviews, online assessments. So having experience with those competitions is very helpful. Is extracurricular activities playing a bigger role in college applications now than before, especially for UC? Yeah, I'd say so, because at least UC, I don't know if they don't take SAT anymore. That's what I'm aware of. So that thing isn't as, so everything else in like the proportion of those would go up in importance because specifically they don't take SAT. I would say that extracurricular activities played the biggest role when deciding whether like at the point of whether you get into your target school or your reach school. So depending on where you're at, that's where extracurriculars will play the biggest role. From getting to the safety to the target, I would say classes and grades are probably pretty important. Do I recommend doing any dual enrollment classes? Yes, I recommend taking calculus, multivariable calculus, linear algebra, differential equations, and maybe even discrete math if you're a CS major, computer science major. Otherwise, if you have interest in other subjects like humanities, yeah, I think there are some dual enrollment classes that would also be fitting for that. If you don't mind, roughly what do you think you rank in CCA to get into UC Berkeley? I have no clue. I had a 4.0, but I definitely did not take it in as many AP classes as other students. I think I took like 11. I knew some students taking like 15 plus. So if you have a good, you should probably maintain like 3.9 plus GPA unweighted to if you want a better chance at getting into UC Berkeley. Thanks. Should a high schooler learn C++ before going to college? Not really needed. C++ is pretty annoying for various like reasons, like due to like the structure of the language and its inherent attachment to C. C++ is used for computer science competitions though, so if you're interested in that, that would be a good idea because C++ is the fastest language that you're probably going to be using. Though I would say Python, any language is probably equivalent with regards to preparation before going to a computer science major. Okay, those are the chat questions.
Okay. Any more questions or?
Yeah, any more questions? Okay. Could you share your intern application experience? Okay, there's more questions. Yeah, so I started applying for internships in my freshman spring, I think, of college. You spam apply a lot, so basically you apply to everywhere that you hear of and you'll see what happens. So most companies don't like taking on freshmen because they want to take on a person who's soon to graduate, so they'll likely want to take on a person who's in their junior year. But some companies will make exceptions for various reasons. So I applied to mostly quantitative trading companies my freshman year, and I interviewed at two of them, one trading one and one software like engineer position at some hedge fund. Essentially at the point where you get the interview, it's all technical skills. So how good you are at coding, in particular algorithms and data structures, also at probability and statistics for a lot of trading roles. Later after that, I started doing something called LeetCode. So it's like an online practice website to prepare for interviews. I did maybe 200 questions on that, and then interviewed at places again, and was able to get an internship my sophomore year again. Though I did not go to that internship. So basically do a lot of LeetCode, do some side projects, take a lot of classes, and then apply. And make sure your graduation year is suitable for what the company would want. You took AP Literature. Do you think it's useful? Yes, it's useful in that it'll help you get out of English in college. So at Berkeley, if you get a 5 on AP Literature, you don't have to take any English. I would say if you want to build up language skills, I wouldn't say it's particularly useful, especially if you're not at the level of where you can like understand and comprehend readings very easily. Because that class expects you to be at that level, and if you're not there, you'll just be fumbling around a lot. So if you want to like try to like skip college credits, then yes, it's useful. If you want to build English skills, I'd just stick to a lot of reading rather than like trying to cram multiple choice questions. How much of each class in community college? I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I would say take a few classes in community college, and I don't know, some technical, some I don't know, like 3 math classes and maybe 1 to 2 humanities classes. If you can. Is Java useful in computer science? Yes, Java is useful in computer science. It's a very popular language for like websites and backends. I'd say these days people probably mostly like thinking about Python because it's inherently connected to machine learning. But yes, Java is useful. I wouldn't focus on particular languages though, because I wouldn't say the particular language matters, because you can just pick up a new language after you learn one language. The fundamentals matter. So learning how to like write clean code, learning how to like understand data structures and algorithms, as well as memory management. You'll learn about that more in college though. How much does sports impact your college applications? I did not do sports in college, so I don't have direct firsthand experience, but I would say here's the thing. Sports take a lot of time. Say if you're on a sport like wrestling, you're probably going to be at practice 3 to 4 hours a day, every day, 5 days a week. If you're on like, a less intensive sport, maybe like tennis or something, you'll be spending 2 hours a day, probably, in practice in high school. So the investment you make is very high. Whether you want that to be your focus, for college applications depends on how good you are at the sport. So people that are very good tend to get recruited. So basically colleges like, I don't know, Yale, Princeton will like take them for sports. But in general, I would say if your aim is STEM, spend a lot more time on STEM. You can play a sport, but just remember that sports are a very huge time commitment, and a lot of students do sports. So, you know, it makes you like a more well-rounded student, but not necessarily a super outstanding college application. Does coming from Berkeley help? Yes, coming from Cal or UC Berkeley helps you not get ghosted when you are applying to internships and jobs. Companies like to see the Berkeley name. However, it'll just get you an interview, not actually help you pass the interview. What was my extracurriculars like in college applications? Well, let's see. I studied Japanese by myself. I played the violin. Okay, none of these I did at a very high level, but I volunteered for multiple political campaigns. I was president of a club, and I think the rest of them were just like things I did at home, so not particularly interesting. Is it recommended to take integrated math 3 before physics? You can, yeah. Both help each other. I would say yes, because some physics will have some sine, cosine nonsense. So yes, take integrated math 3 before physics. Did I take AOPS classes growing up? No, I did not. Have I wish I have? I would say if you did take AOPS classes, so Art of Problem Solving, it's a math website for competition math. I would say it'll help you a lot later in college and after. Well, basically in college when applying to internships and in college classes. So I would recommend doing AOPS. Probably start with like AOPS book 1 or like algebra or like counting or something. I'm not really sure. I know they have those kind of books, but just start with like the book at your level, essentially. Maybe volume 1. Problem solving volume 1 is the one to start with, because that will probably get you to the level of being able to do AMC 10 questions and AMY questions.
Is that all the questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't see any more.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Liam, for joining and sharing with us your high school experience and the courses you took. And once again, thank you so much for Haddee for hosting this meeting and outreaching to these students. And I'd like to thank everyone for taking time to come to this meeting. And please check out the Haddee website if you're in search of a tutor or a counselor. So thank you.
Thank you, Kate, for hosting this lovely event. Thank you, Liam. And thank all the parents and students for joining us tonight. Okay. Bye, Kate. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you soon. Thanks again. We'll have the recording. Okay, bye-bye.